Hello, this is Ernesto, and we're starting our 5th episode of YeiraLab. So welcome, and today we're going to be talking about a few versions or few components that you can use to provide more interactivity into your exposition type of contents. So in the past episodes, we've seen lots of things around formatting, around text, and around layouts. And this time, we're going to be asking the user for a bit more interaction with our content. So let me just start my screencast. And before jumping into the topic, I came across something that I wanted to show you. Right now, we're on our E5 episode folder. And I'm adding here a text file that comes out of Moodle. So I was just seeing today one of our friends broadcast about Moodle. They were talking about Moodle and remembering that Moodle just came out almost 20 years before. And there's a lot of experience of people working with educational technology goes around Moodle. So there's this gift format. I don't remember what the acronym means, but this is what Moodle uses for quizzes. And there's a whole page that you can visit here that will explain most of the syntax. But I was comparing some of these elements of syntax with what we had for a question. And if we just revisit what we did for our last episode in a multiple option question where you have images and you have video feedback, then it turns out that GIFT has a lot more of the need of have this punctuation, double columns, and certain notation for right or wrong. So I guess this is a good way of comparing what things are out there to build your questionnaires. And also a reminder is that this format is only for questionnaires. It's only for evaluations. It doesn't work for presenting content. And I would like to highlight that difference right now for our toolkit. We're able to combine mixed content together with quizzes and with questionnaires. So, then let's go ahead and talk about all these things that we have prepared for today. And without further ado, let's just go into my clean episode 5 file here. I'm just starting with a basic page, which has a category ID, and we're going to just put here a content to highlight the page number. So let's run our environment here. I'm going to close these tabs. I don't need them. And Firefox is going to come up in a second, and we're going to see this text, page 1. So this time, instead of building the blocks on the same page, what I want to do is I want to show what a multiple page file would look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this block and paste it 5 times. And I'm going to put the page number on each of them. And before adding our interactive content inside of each of these pages, we're going to talk a little bit about page navigation. So if I save this file here, then I'll find that I have the page 1, and then I have a next button here. And if I click on this, I'll go to next page, and I have an extra button here to go back. So you see, you can have now page navigation. You're seeing 5 pages, and you can go through them. And you can also control a bit of this navigation on the config YAML file. So you remember we had 2 YAML files. We have the pages file where we put most of our content, and then we have a config file that has some items here. It has a title, description. There's a highlight color that this is the color that comes in this button, or any kind of styling or default styling when it takes a color. And you can change that as well. And then we have here this element that's called defaults. And then you have here two items. You have a previous item, a prev, and the next item. And in this case, previous is pointing at the text, back text, and next. So I can change here to something else, and all my page navigation will change accordingly. Continue, for instance. And if I do that, then I'll have different tags for my navigation, continue or return. And obviously, you can put this in any language that you want. So I'm just going to leave this as it was. And imagine that now you're having, I'm going to comment this previous or back button. Imagine that you have now a quiz and you want to show or start showing each of the questions one by one, but you don't want the users to go back to past questions. So if you want to do that, you just comment this line. And once we have the rebuild here, I'm going to just move forward with no chance to go backwards. And in some special cases that we're going to see in the next episode, we can just omit the whole navigation here and rely on different types of navigation that's made with custom buttons that are going to help you building different types of jumps. You can go back, forward, or you can go into another page directly by invoking the ID of that page. So we'll come back to that in the next episode, and we're going to be building a scenario type of learning content where you have branching. So enough about navigation now. I think we can just get back to our 5 pages that we want to show here. And I'm going to start now with some content. So the first thing I want to show now is an accordion or a collapse type of element. So right below this, I'm going to put a block. And inside of this block, let's put a card with a certain margin and padding. And inside of this card, I'm going to start a new Bloom element that collapse. And inside of collapse, I have 2 attributes. Remember, we mentioned that attributes won't have a slash or a dash before. They just come as tags here. And inside of this header, I can put any text that I want. And I'm going to add in the header and the content. So these 2 elements are part of a collapse. And we'll see how they work. So first, I'm going to put here text. And click here to open. And below that, there's going to be a content. And perhaps we can put here formatted text with as text left. And this is my content to be displayed. I'm going to save this, and it's going to appear on my first page right here. You see, I have this this block, which is part of the card I defined. And then I have this header clicked here to open. And if I click on this, then I have an extra block of content below. So this is my collapsible element. And I can paste as many as these as I want. If I want to have them next to each other, I just place them like this. And I'm going to have, you know, an accordion type of content. So this is nice in terms of instructional design because it asks your users to have a bit of interaction with the content. So you can have kind of a summary of concepts, you know, concept 1, concept 2, and so on, concept. And then you can number them or do whatever you want with them. And they're going to form here a kind of a content list or a summary. And as soon as you click on that, then you'll be facing the content itself. You could also build quizzes with this. If you want to have inside of these blocks a question, you can also bring those inside of these boxes. Okay, so let's move on now. And on page 2, we're going to add, again, a block. Let me just try to copy this here. Going to be quicker. And a card. And inside of that card, I'm going to use another model that can, trigger these interactions with your users. This is a model. A model is kind of a dialogue element that also has, I'm going to just to rip off this same paragraph and show you that we have the exact same components here. So we have a header and we have a content. And let's change this to open model. And I'm going to just leave this. So let's see on the second page now. If I move over here, you see this big open model. There's a whole box. And you see that if I hover on it, actually the box is pretty large. Then I click on it, and then I have here my content to be displayed. Now in this case, as the content is pretty plain, you will see that it comes with an overlay, with a kind of shadow here, or a kind of transparency that intends to block the content behind your model. And then inside you can put anything. So let's give to this a bit of background. So instead of using just a normal text like this, let me just add here. You remember we had a Bulma component that's message. So I'm going to use here has text left again. And inside this message block, I have a message header and a message body. Message header. And I'm going to put it right here, message body. And let's move this. Let's move this to the body. I'm missing a one. So I indent this correctly, and then it's inside of the message body. And on the header, I'm going to put a normal text. Have a look at this. If I want to use this column, let me just show you a trick here. I need to put in quotes so that it doesn't get mixed up with the tag here, and we can have that. And then let's see how it pops out. So if I open model, you see now we have a box that has this background. So sometimes it's useful to use these pre-built blocks that Bulma is providing to us as a CSS framework. And you see the message is perfect for this because it will give this kind of light gray background to my content. It's better than just having the text right on the overlay here. Okay, and if I click outside of the model, or if I click on this close icon, then it'll go back to the normal content display. Okay, very good. So let's move on now to the third interaction that I want to show today. And this is going to be a slideshow. So slideshows are composed of slides. So let's, again, put a block. And inside of this, our card. And inside my card, I'm going to put now my slideshow. And the format is slideshow with this type of identifier that's like a camelback identifier. That means you basically use the name, the slideshow. You skip the spaces, and then you use caps on all words. And inside this slideshow, I can do many things. I can just put a text. I can say just slide 1, like this. I could use a Bulma class like title. Let's use title here, slide 2. Or I can use any other full-fledged component. Let's put another block. And why not here another text with certain margin. And let me just copy my infamous Jedi text that I have here as a lorem ipsum, just to hold some space for us. And let's go now to page 3 on our build here. And you see now we have this is my slide 1. It was only text, and I have these navigator icons here. And I also have these pages below, so I can actually drag also the slides. If I go into a mobile phone, I'll see that using touch, the touch interface, I'll be able to shift slides. So here you see the title in the format that we wanted, and in this case you have the whole phrase, and of course this is responsive and all. So this is also a way in which you can display content. Coming up features are, we want to have also the opportunity to offer timed transitions, that is, or autoplay. That is, if you just show this element at the beginning, maybe you can move after 10 seconds to the next slide and so on. Personally, I don't like that way of interacting much, because I would prefer my student or my user to be in charge of what he wants to see. So usually for marketing purposes, it's good to be shifting slides, but in terms of training, it's better to give my user the control to navigate the content on his or her own. But there they are. And of course, you can put images if you want here, which would make sense perhaps to slideshows. Okay, so let's then move now to a different type of display. So as we've seen, let's just summarize. Here we've seen collapse elements and model elements. And these cases were usually, it's almost like an atom that has a header and content. However, in the slideshow, what you have is an array of elements. There are many ways in which you can show these arrays. And we're going to see right now another way of presenting your content arrays, let's call them like that. And in this case, this is called steps or step. So I'm going to put another block and part and P5 like this. And inside this, we're going to put something called steps. So it's again an array. However, in this array, I will need again a header and a content, but I'll need to start with this dash, because we're going to have multiple steps. So I cannot just leave that just like here without a dash, because we want to tell the markup that this is an element and there's following steps to this. So I start with the dash, and I start with the header, and the header is going to have here step 1 text. Then I'm going to skip the dash and just put a tab, and now I'm going to put the content of that step. And inside of this content, I can put a text and say this is my first step. And of course, we can have multiple of these. So I'm going to copy just 3 times this, so that we can have 3 steps, and then put here second and third. Okay. And once I save this and go back to my browser, let's go to page 4. And you're going to see this formatting here that is displaying multiple content. So if you click on this step, if you're teaching, for instance, something that's procedural, let's say, or you're teaching a method, and you want your users or your students to understand this sequence of events or steps that they need to follow, this is ideal for them. So it's not only using tabs or any other format, but it gives you a visual idea of the process itself. You need to go from this step to the other. And of course, I just place here step, but you can put the name of the process block. That's very, very much helpful. So I can click on the second and third step, and you'll see a nice transition as well that goes from one to the other. Now, In this case, if you collapse this, you'll find at some point that the titles or the headers disappear. And this is a way of adapting to a mobile version. So you can have, the steps on a mobile phone, and then you have a hint of what comes next, but you don't have necessarily the title. So you don't have a cluttered interface. And as soon as you click on the next, then you have the highlighted title there. So this is also helpful in case you have people accessing your content from a mobile phone. Okay, then let's move now to the last example that I have for today. And it's very similar to all that we've seen, but in this case, this is called tabs. And it starts almost the same as steps. So I'm going to copy this into our 5th page here, just like this. And instead of steps, then I'm going to use the name tabs. And I'm going to do this. I'm using Command V, and this, what it does in my editor is it copies, or it kind of duplicates my cursor here. So when I delete this, I'll be able to insert here tab 1, tab 2. And you see now all texts were edited at the same time. This is a useful feature of a text editor. Okay, so let's save this and have a look at it right now. So there are the steps. And as suspected, I have here my tabs. So I can put any name that I want here. And if I click on each tab, then I'll get the next tab. So just it is obvious that we can have whatever we want here, but just for kind of running an example of what kind of content you could have there, let me just pick perhaps a piece of this. So you remember we were seeing this question inside of a block on the last episode. So let me just try to click on or to paste this as a content inside of a tab. So instead of a text, what I want to have is a complete question. The only thing I need to be careful with is the indenting. So a proper indent would be like this, and then my whole question elements need to go also indented inside of the question block. And I'll need to have here also images. So you remember on the last episode we had our assets folder, and I have here multi-tool and so and show world. So let me just grab this. I'm just going to copy this, like it doesn't matter, it comes with a bit more, and open my assets folder here. Oh, they're there. Oh, we can use them right off the editor. So if I save this, let's see what happened. So I'm just making an experiment now. I have my tabs, and if I click on the tabs on the 3rd tab, then the whole question comes out, and I can interact with it as a normal question. So you could have, if you have a certain quiz, you can compress that quiz using your tabs or your steps and have the same interaction. Now, you'll see that some of the learning analytics came out right off that. And this is because we were having the same ID here. So whenever you have a question with a certain ID and you're running that from the same URL, in this case, our local host, then this is like telling your learning analytics backend, I have this specific question from this specific page. And as we're running this on a local host, we're running it locally on my computer, then we have kind of a default user called non-existent user. This is something you can use for testing. And this non-existent user will come in the report download of your learning analytics. So you know that you can run this, and it's not going to be merging with your data from a live site in Yeira. So this is a good feature. But if you don't want to have this history of replies to this or responses to this question, then you can just go and change this and say, okay, this is episode 5, and the ID of the question is number 1. And as soon as I do this, then the analytics dashboard is going to disappear. Remember that view only comes for admin users. So your students are not going to be seeing those analytics, only you. And then I can start from fresh. I can say, okay, I'm going to send this reply, and I'll get the feedback with the question, and then I have a fresh response here with a certain measurement of grading and time. So in this way, you can reorganize all of your content. And you see, this is not exclusive of expositive kind of content. You don't need only to put here text, paragraphs, multimedia. You could also add questions, and you could even put them instead of a model screen. So let's try that experiment just quickly. And I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to copy my question, and I'm going to bring that into the model element that I had here. So you see, we had a message. So instead of the message body that we have here, very simple, I'm going to put my question. And again, just take care of the tabs that need to reflect the hierarchy of components. So now I'm going to select the whole block here so that the question is properly formatted. And let's use now another ID. So now these are different questions with different IDs. And let's give them a try here. If I click next and I open the model, you see the model has now the question. And again, I can interact with that question. And the model is going to adapt immediately to that information. So you saw there's a scroll here. So if your model is too large, then you'll be able to scroll down without any, losing the interaction with the background content. By opening the model again, your question is reset, but your data is already there. So this is a way in which you can also present questions. And basically, this is a way of exploring the toolkit, and you'll see that most of this will work combined. You could put inside of the steps. You could also use tabs inside, and you could mix and match whatever you want. With perhaps the only exception of something that's important to mention now. The model component works slightly different from the others. In the case of every component that we have here, there's a way of displaying multiple instances. So if you have, for instance, these collapsible elements, or you have the slides, they don't actually disappear from your browser. They're just being focused or not. So they can coexist. And something similar happens with your steps. They're pretty straightforward. But in the case of models, you can also have problems. If I just have a model here, and let's just, I'm going to do something here. Just undo. So I can just copy this part. Then let me just redo my edit here. And I'm going to put above this another model. So I have a couple of them now. And I'm missing here text best message. Okay. And now I have a couple of models which will work fine. So it's okay. I have here open model 1 and open model 2. If I click on the first, I'll have this. And if I click on the second, then I have this. So far, it's all okay. So but what doesn't work is if you pick this model and try to put it inside of another model, this gets confusing for your toolkit. So it's you need to take care of as well. Models need to be something that interrupts. You need to think of them as an interruption of your normal content. So it works well for something you want to highlight. You don't want to distract your users, and you want to focus exclusively on a certain block of content. then they work perfectly fine. But if you want to have, you know, combined or hierarchical models, then it gets confusing because you can lose track where you were. So if you have, let's say, 3 depths of models, it doesn't really make sense for your users. Sometimes they can just want to go right at the top of everything, and they'll be you know, confused. And it doesn't work at all, actually. If I just let's put this instead of a question, I'm going to put the model, nested model. Nothing will happen, actually. So it's already kind of fail-safe in case you you end up having something like this. It's not going to open, or I don't expect it to open anything. So if I click on this, then oh, there it is. It's it actually works, but it's a bad idea because you get confused and you need to exit a couple of times. And sometimes, you know, if you have a model inside of a slideshow, it could also be difficult to understand. So, well, we have a hidden feature here. I wasn't expecting it to work because it doesn't work with any other content for some reason. It doesn't live probably along with slideshows nested inside of them. But nonetheless, okay, you can do that, but I don't recommend that. So let's just get this back to how it was. Maybe open model 1, model 2, and that's it. Yeah, right now we're over our time. I think we covered all that we wanted. So you can see that with these elements, you can have more interactive content. Your users are going to be happier with your elements. And another good reason to use any of these components is that it doesn't allow you or your users to compare your content with a PDF, with a static file. Sometimes, you know, the advantage of having web-based contents is you have the reactive or the responsive aspect. You can change the format depending on your screen or device, which is good. It doesn't happen that gracefully with a PDF, for instance. But there's another reason to use them, and it is if you had a course that only works with PDF files, it's easy to grab that and put it in another platform. So your content can be ripped off, and someone's to be able to distribute that and appropriate that unlawfully, let's say. So if you use this interactive content, you can at least add an extra barrier for people who want to use your content without the proper attribution of authorship. So that means it's more difficult to grab an HTML file, specifically if it's running on your platform on Yeira. You already have some elements that will make your content more secure. You have a login, then you have a way of communicating. This toolkit will communicate with Yeira, and it's not going to work in any other learning management system. And then the way you interact with the content helps as well in this securing your learning content. So very good. So we're up. The time's up. So it was again fantastic to be sharing this with you. I look forward for our next episode. And we're going to be talking about interesting things. We're going to be building a scenario type of learning where we have these branches. So as a preview, you remember these books. When I was a child, I was reading a lot of these Dungeons and Dragons books where you had a story that you had to build. And once you finish a certain chapter, then at the bottom you have a choice to take. You want to, attack those minions that came at you, or you want to hide and try to do something else. And then the choices were related to pages. So you were jumping to another page, and sometimes the end could be really bad, and you could just go backwards and try another branch, and you could spend there hours and hours. So we'll be implementing with a certain type of navigation between pages that allows us to branch directly to a certain page. And with some other tricks like hiding our normal navigation, we're going to be building an interesting training content that uses these scenarios. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.